You're welcome to this second part of our lecture series on variables. And this is where we'll be showcasing how variables work within the computer environment in Python. Now, I have created a file here called variables.py and I've put some content here. These contents are texts that are meant to guide me. They are comments. Python will not execute them. They are just for human consumption. If you execute this, for instance, you will see nothing coming out as the results. You can say run the file. It's just an empty file as far as Python is concerned. So here we'll talk about how do you declare variables, how do you create variables, how do you go about assigning values to variables, how do you check the type of content in your variables, how do you read content of variables, how do you update variable values, how do you check the address in the memory of the computer, and how do you check the size of data that you have kept in the memory. So let's start from creating variables. That was one important rule that I forgot to put in my previous slide on naming variables, and that has to do with the case sensitivity of variable names. Python is a case sensitive programming language, so the way I write first name this way, that's a valid variable name, but that variable name is not the same as this. Even though to human being they're essentially the same, it's not the same as this. It is not the same as this. It's not the same as, I come in here and I put this. It's not the same as this. It is not the same as first name. It is not the same as, I'm giving you all forms of options that are available. It's, at least let me say most, I won't say all. This is another valid name. It is not the same as this. It's not the same as this. It's not the same as this. Let me take it to the next line. Yeah. So these are names that are variants of a base name, first name. I could have declared my variable this way. It's acceptable. I could have used lines 5 through 15 and some other variations that I might not have captured there. All of these are valid names that could be used for variables. But I cannot, for instance, say 1 here. You can see it's already yelling at me saying, hey, that is not possible. But it's possible for me to have figure 1 as part of the address. For instance, I can say address 1 or contact address 1 more specifically. But I cannot come in and say, okay, hold on a second. I cannot put 1 at the beginning. It's not acceptable. So we need to get that clear. So Python is case sensitive. All these variables are distinct variables. They are distinct locations. So if you want to assign value to them, all of them may keep the same values. They may keep different values. It depends on what the situation is. But this is like a jersey number for a player. It's different from this jersey number. It's different from this jersey number. So don't assume that, oh, because they are all first name, they mean the same thing. They don't all mean the same thing. So in programming, you need to choose whichever convention works for you. I have seen programmers use this convention where they put underscore. It's acceptable. There is nothing against that. I just feel like it looks scary to starters to start putting lots of underscores. So I tend to move in the line of this first set, which I have here. I can write first name straight away like this. Most people don't like that. So I keep it simple. I can go lowercase all through, or I use these two forms of camel casing. So the first letter can be lower letter and then the capital letter in the second word, because these are two words, first name, then I can do it this way, or I capitalize the first letter in both words and then I keep something in there. So in the initial format, this is the way you can create string variables. So why do I have first name all through? I can just say first name and then last name. So I keep this here, or we keep that there for decoration purpose. We may just put nothing in there. So I will assign no value. I will assign nothing to them, and I will assign nothing to them upon creation. It's already telling them that they are string by virtue of me putting this empty value in them. But if you do not want to do that, you can let them keep complaining as they were doing before, and then you're fine. Python is just putting the underline there to let you know that, hey, these are empty contents now. We need to put values in them. So how do you start assigning values to these variables? It's very simple. We'll get to that in a minute, but let's create some other variables that may be very important to us. I can put my age, I can put my salary, I can put family size, I can put what else? Maybe FX rate for my country. A lot of people yell at me for bringing this up, so let me change it to something more neutral. I put pi there. So I am trying to create a constant by creating pi. This is a variable that will take integer. This is a variable that will take float. This is a variable that will take integer. Let me create a variable that will take boolean, is retired. So all of them don't have any value yet. They are just created variables which are memory locations in the computer. So how do we start assigning values to them? So we need to keep one of these first names. We can't use all of them at the same time. So I'm going to be forced to delete the first one and then the third one. So I go with these three, with this option rather. So I come in here, I can paste all of this here. I need to start putting content in them. At a later point, we'll see how we can interactively get values into this. But for now, let me just assign my first name into that variable. So initially, first name variable was empty. Now I am putting a content in there. Age, I'll put 21. Okay, that's a lie. I'm not 21. And then my salary, I can put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.789. Okay. Family size, it's a number. Put 6. Pi is a constant, 3.142, and some other trailing numbers. And then, am I retired? I'll say false. I am not. I'm still very much active. Okay, so this is the way you can assign values to variables. You are putting content into those previously empty memory locations. This symbol stands for assign, not equal to. I struggled with this in my early days of programming, when I used to see this equation. X is equal to, that was the way I interpreted it. X is equal to X plus 1. But that's not what it means, because I argued a lot with technical people that there will never be a scenario when X is going to be equal to X plus 1. But in programming, this expression is valid because we are not talking of this symbol as equal to. Rather, we are saying assign what is on the right to this variable, meaning that if X used to be 1, we are adding 1 to it to get 2, and 2 is now being stored in X. So X is no longer 1, it is now 2. That's what this expression is. You will meet it a lot, and you need to be, quite familiar with it. So I'm not going to delete it. I'll just comment it out. so that my computer program will ignore it. It won't execute it. So how do you check the type of variable? The type of variable data is usually defined in Python by the kind of data you keep in it. Initially, I created these variable names with an idea in mind. I want first name to contain a text or string. I want age to contain integer. I planned my salary to contain float, family size, integer, pi. It's going to be a float. It's retired will be Boolean. But this is just my own idea. In reality, I could have stored, another type of data in them. For instance, I could have come into my first name and put a number there. Python will see first name as a type of the data that you have kept in it. But let's try to be civil for a second here and then follow what we have. So how do I check the type of variable? There is a keyword called type, and then you put the variable name. So in this case, I'll say first name. But if you run this, you won't see anything. Yeah, it just says first name. That's not what you want. What you want is a situation where you can check the results. So I'll say print the type of first name for me. If you run this again, it should come back. No, it's telling me there is a problem. So hold on a second. Run the Python file. First name is not defined. Really? So we need to go check. This is first name. And this is first name. It's the same. And this is first name. So if it tells me it is not defined, only one thing could be done to make this easy. I'll come in here and say put str here to indicate that it's a string. And in that case, it's telling me, oh, I'm aware there is a problem with your code, but it's now yelling at me about age being undefined. So I'll go in and say age is an int. This is quite bizarre. In some other IDEs, you won't see this. So this is float. My family size is an integer. Now pi is going to be a float because we want to keep 3.142 in there. And then we want this to be a Boolean. Yeah. So now I do not expect any noise again from Python. Oh, correct. So this executes well. So it's telling me in here, my first name is of the type string. In VS Code, it's behaving this way. If you use PyCharm, it's not going to behave this way because you do not even need to explicitly indicate the data type when you are creating your variables. But this is the way, VS Code is implementing this. So, and you can implement the same thing for different, variable types that you have. How do we read the content of those variables? Very simple. Just use the print command and I can put the variable name. In this case, I'm working with first name all through. If I run this, it tells me the content of first name is Ibrahim. How do I update that variable name? I can go in there and say currently first name contains Ibrahim, or I can override that with Adewale, and then I'll check the content of that variable again in this format. And if I print it out, I won't see Ibrahim, rather I'll see Adewale. That's the latest content in the variable. How do you check the address of the variable? We always talked about variable being a memory location. So you can do that by saying print the ID of the variable name. It's going to give you a number, which is the memory location where that data is kept in the computer memory. And how do you check the size of data that is in there? You can do print sys dot, it doesn't know what sys is, so you need to backtrack 1 second. You go up into the upper part here and say import sys. That's trying to speak to your operating system. And then you come back down here and say sys dot get size of, and then you put the variable name, in this case first name, and when you print it, it will tell you how much byte that variable currently takes in the memory of the computer. In case for the first name that we're dealing with, I have 48 byte being consumed by Adewale. If you change the content, the size of the memory being used is also going to be different. So in this very short session, we've seen how you can create variables by assigning the appropriate data type to them. In VS Code, in PyCharm and other IDEs, that's not necessary. You follow the naming conventions that we've given. Case sensitivity is key here. This is the way you can assign values to those variables. This is a way of putting contents in them. And then we talked about how you can check variable type, how you can read content, how you can update content, and how you can go around, you know, checking the address of the variable in the memory, which gives you a number like this. In fact, there is another hexadecimal form of displaying that. You can say print X form of the ID of first name, and when you run it, it will give you the address in an hexadecimal format. People who do system-oriented programming will be more excited about that. And if you want to check how much memory is being consumed by your different variables, you can use import sys first, as I've done in line 2 here, and then you go pass your variable into the get size of method of sys object, and it's going to give you the result in byte. In this case, I have 48 byte being consumed by this first name that currently stores Adewale. These are basic operations you will be carrying out on regular basis when you write Python code. I hope you've been able to gain one or two things here. I look forward to seeing you in the next video, where I'll be talking about the scope of variables, because variables have scope and all of them just don't behave the same way. Thanks a lot for subscribing to this channel. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye for now.